Lake Bodom murders, one of the most notorious unsolved murder cases in Finnish criminal history. 4 teenagers were brutally attacked in their sleep. 1 teen survived. Multiple suspects, so many possibilities. Who did it and why?
Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
Lake Bodom murders is one of the most infamous unsolved murder cases in Finnish criminal history. When I started doing research on this case, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I spent hours researching and watching content, reading articles, and this case totally sucked me in. And oh my god, this has to be one of the most confusing and mind-boggling cases out there. There is so many possibilities, so many suspects who all look guilty, and still the case remains unsolved. I had to stop multiple times and take a break because I was about to rip my hair off my head. And I just kept yelling, they all did it. They're all guilty. Like, I'm done. I feel like I'm hiding behind the microphone. I just want the audio to sound good for you guys, so I hope it doesn't look weird. Anyways, before we get into the video, hi, hello, my name is Helena and I am from Finland. On this channel, we talk about topics like true crime, mysteries, paranormal, and other mind-boggling topics. We also react to craziest police body cam videos and craziest arrests on live streams. And yes, we can't forget those Karens and Kevins. So we will also react to craziest Karen and Kevin moments on live streams. So you're welcome to join us in chat and we can get triggered together. Woo! So if you like anything creepy, scary, or mysterious, or just outrageous and ridiculous, you're at the right place. If you feel like you belong here with us weirdos, please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell so you won't miss my next upload. Finland has over 200 unsolved murders, and some of these murder mysteries are truly mind-boggling and disturbing. This is going to be a full-on series, so buckle up. There's going to be multiple truly disturbing cases we're going to cover on this channel. On this episode, we dive deep into the case of the Lake Bodom murders. On June 5th, 1960, 3 teenagers were brutally murdered at the Lake Bodom in Espoo, Finland. The 14 survived the attack. 15-year-old Maila Irmeli Björklund and Anja Tuulikki Mäki, accompanied by their friends 18-year-old Seppo Antero Boisman and Nils Wilhem Gustafsson, had decided to go camping on Saturday, June 4th, 1960. It was one of the hottest summers in Finnish history, so understandably, people were doing a lot of stuff and being outdoors, and it was hot even during the night. The teens set up their camp at the shore of Lake Bodom, near the city of Espoo's Oittaa Manor. The next day, in the early morning hours, somewhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., Maila Irmeli Björklund, Anja Tuulikki Mäki, and Seppo Antero Boisman were all stabbed and bludgeoned to death. The only survivor, Nils Wilhem Gustafsson, had also been attacked, but he had only minor cuts and fractured facial bones. So around 6 in the morning, 2 boys were birdwatching some distance away, but with a clear view to the campsite. And then they spotted the teenagers' motorcycles and, being curious, they wanted to take a closer look. Suddenly, they heard noises from the direction of the campsite. And then they noticed a man with light-colored hair and light-colored top, like jacket or shirt, hide in the bushes behind the tent. They said the tent was already collapsed at that point and someone's feet were visible on top. Well, the boys figured the person camping there had woken up, so they ran away so they wouldn't be caught. It took hours before the bodies were finally discovered. Around 11:15 a.m., a man named Esko Johansson arrived at the lake with his 2 sons, about to go swimming. Johansson had paid attention to the collapsed tent and went to get a closer look. After being close enough, he realized the seriousness of the situation and immediately left the scene to alert the authorities. Johansson's phone call with the police went like this. Bodomjärven eteläpäässä Oittaan kartanon maalla, lähellä Veiston vesilaitosrakennustyömaata, tapahtunut verityö, jossa ainakin 3 henkilöä pahoinpidelty. The police arrived at the scene 11:45 a.m. The only survivor, Nils Gustafsson, was found in and out of consciousness on top of the tent, and he was transferred to Töle Hospital by Red Cross's ambulance. The other 3 teenagers were unfortunately already passed when the authorities arrived at the scene, and there was nothing they could do. 15-year-old girls Maila Irmeli Björklund, Anja Tuulikki Mäki, and also 18-year-old Seppo Antero Boisman tragically lost their lives way too young. The cause of death was multiple stab wounds and hits with a blunt object, all targeted to their heads. Björklund, allegedly Gustafsson's girlfriend, was found undressed from the waist down, and she had suffered the most injuries out of all of the victims, and her body was also found on top of the tent. Björklund had been stabbed multiple times after her death, and the other 2 were killed with a lot less brutality. The investigations revealed that the killer didn't attack the victims from inside the tent. Based on the evidence, it was obvious that the attacker had attacked the sleeping teens from outside of the tent by stabbing and hitting with a blunt object through the tent. So what is odd? Turns out there was nice clean cuts on the side of the tent that were most likely cut before the attack. Why would the attacker cut these holes if he never used them? Did they cut the holes so they can see inside where everyone is sleeping? Because I think that's like the only explanation that makes sense. The blunt object that the teens were attacked with was most likely a big rock or a metal pipe, but the murder weapons were never found. What the detectives found really odd is that the killer had taken several items that belonged to the victims, but none of them were worth any money. These items included wallets, little bit of money, and clothes. Both Gustafsson's and Boisman's shoes were missing. Later, Boisman's shoes were found abandoned at the side of the road not far from the scene, but Gustafsson's shoes were found hidden between rocks. Also, along the items that were taken was keys to the motorcycles. But what's odd is that the motorcycles themselves had been left behind. The police working at the scene made a major mistake. The police didn't close the site, nor record the details of the scene. They allowed a crowd of police officers and civilians to walk around the scene and disturb the evidence. Almost everyone in the town came to help to find and collect the evidence. Despite all efforts, several of the victims' items were never found. There had been multiple suspects over the course of the investigation, but there are names that raised most suspicion. Valdemar Kullström was suspected by many of the locals. Valdemar was a kiosk keeper from Oitta, not far from the murder scene. He was known to have been hostile towards campers. However, police found no hard evidence to link him to the actual murders. The town locals knew Valdemar was violent, and a lot of people were afraid of him. He terrorized people by cutting down tents while they were sleeping inside, and threw rocks at people who came to his street. Some people have later said they saw him coming back from the murder scene, but they were too afraid to call the police. The police never collected any DNA for Valdemar Kullström. It is rumored that there is a lot more evidence that the police almost immediately ignored. Some people suspect it might be because of the language barrier. So in Finland, we are a country with 2 languages, Finnish and Swedish. Some people speak one but not the other. And if I understood correctly, a lot of people related to this case are Swedish speaking and some of the names are Swedish. So I don't know exactly the details to that, so that's just my guess. But Valdemar had an alibi for the night of the murders. His wife told the police that he was home that night. Most public suspicion focused on German-born man named Hans Assmann. Hans Assmann actually lived near the Lake Bodom, several kilometers away. A series of popular books created a theory of Assmann committing the Bodom murders and also several other murders, and people started talking. However, the police didn't take it seriously because Assmann had an alibi for the night of the murders. On the morning of June 6, 1960, about a day after Lake Bodom massacre, Helsinki Surgical Hospital took in a bloody man. This man was dirty and he also behaved really strange. Sometimes he would pretend to be unconscious, and later he lied about where he lives. This man was Hans Assmann. So when he arrived in the hospital, his hands were really dirty and there was dirt under his nails. Also, his clothes had red stains all over them that looked like blood. After he arrived in the hospital, he was washing his hands constantly to the point that the doctors and nurses thought it was really odd. So remember when I told you earlier that he lied to the doctors about where he lived? Based on an official document from the hospital, Assmann had arrived at the hospital from a factory located in Vallila. He had pretended to be unconscious, but with a little trick, doctors were able to wake him up. He said he lived in Espoo, Kalliontie, which later had been proven to be false. The address actually belonged to a painter, Antti Oksanen's manor. Assmann had also told the doctors that his date of birth was December 12, 1923. I don't know if this was ever confirmed. It is also said that Assmann's wife visited him in the hospital, but also, multiple young girls came to visit him in the hospital. Who were these girls? So, Assmann was a suspect for the murders, but he had rock-solid alibi. Multiple witnesses have reported seeing him in Helsinki that night. What I still find very odd is the bloody clothes and the weird obsessive hand-washing. And also the timing. It literally happened the day after the Bodom murders. It just seems too good to be just a coincidence. I don't know. What do you guys think? A man named Pentti Soininen was known for his violent tendencies in the 1960s. Soininen was arrested for other crimes, and he had claimed to a fellow inmate that he was responsible for Lake Bodom murders. However, it is very unlikely it was him, because he was approximately 14 years old during the murders, and many question whether it be possible for a 14-year-old being able to overpower 4 older teenagers.
63-vuotiaalle Nils Gustafssonille luettiin tänään syytteet Bodomjärven kolmoismurhasta. Gustafsson kiistää edelleen kaikki syytteet. Istuntopäivän päätteeksi Gustafsson astui ensimmäistä kertaa tiedotusvälineiden eteen.
So fast forward to almost 44 years after the murders. In late March 2004, Gustafsson, the only survivor of the massacre, was arrested. In early 2005, the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation declared the case was solved based on forensic analysis. According to prosecution's interpretations of the bloodstains, Gustafsson had been drunk and excluded from the tent when he attacked the other boy, getting his jaw broken in a fight, which escalated into him committing the murders. The trial started on August 4, 2005, 45 years after the massacre, and it looked like there was finally going to be closure for the victims' families' long torturous wait. But Gustafsson's defense lawyer argued that Gustafsson would have been incapable of killing 3 people given the extent of his injuries.
Ihan ensimmäisenä, mitä muistat aamuyön tapahtumista?
Viimeinen muistikuva on se, kun mentiin nukkumaan ja toivottiin hyvää yötä. Sen jälkeen en muista, oliko keskiviikko vai torstai, kun heräsin.
Miten voitte olla varma, että olette syytön, jos ette muista mitään?
Olen syytön ja sillä sipulla.
Miten hyvin tunsitte uhrit ja millaiset suhteet teillä oli erityisesti Irmeliin?
Mulla oli lämpimät suhteet Irmeliin. Ja Seppo oli mun nuoruuden kaveri.
Miten on mahdollista, että teissä ei näkynyt juuri vammoja sen jälkeen, kun pääsitte sairaalasta, vaikka olitte kertomuksenne mukaan vakavasti loukkaantunut?
Näkyyhän niissä vammoja.
Miten olette kokenut tämän odotusajan? Siis sen jälkeen, kun asia nousi uudelleen esille keväällä.
Kovin raskaalta.
Anteeksi.
Sanon sen jo. Kovin raskaasti.
Entä kuinka paljon olette seurannut Bodom-kirjoittelua tässä vuosien varrella?
Olen lukenut lehtiä.
So, it has been known from almost the very beginning that the shoes that the killer was wearing belonged to Gustafsson. And these same shoes were hidden around 500 meters from the murder scene. Why were they hidden? And Gustafsson, he was found barefoot on top of the tent. Modern DNA analysis was significant for the prosecution as it showed that the 3 murdered victims' blood was on Gustafsson's shoes, but the shoes had no Gustafsson's blood on them. The prosecution said that the lack of Gustafsson's blood on the shoes, the injuries that Gustafsson had, occurred at a different time to the attack. The prosecution also said that the only explanation of the lack of his own blood on his own shoes and based on the injuries was that Gustafsson had committed the murders, then faked the theft by hiding the items, and then further injured himself, and then went back to the tent where now barefoot he pretended to be unconscious. The prosecution also brought up tall blonde man that the birdwatchers have seen at the scene and said that Gustafsson was the said man. The prosecution also said that Gustafsson had been overheard making incriminating remark and also that a decade after the massacre he had opened up to a woman about his guilt. On October 7th, 2005, Nils Wilhem Gustafsson was acquitted of all charges. The court explained that the prosecution's evidence was inconclusive and failed to show Gustafsson had motive appropriate to a crime of such extreme seriousness. Also, the certainty about the facts is impossible because of the time that had passed. The state of Finland paid Gustafsson 44,900 euros for the mental suffering caused by the long remand time. Even though he was cleared of all charges, he was refused permission to sue Finnish newspapers of defamation. You thought this was over? Nope. No hei nyt äiti, huusi Irmeli lähtiessään. Siihen saakka, kunnes moottoripyörät katosivat päristen tienmutkan taa, Irmeli katseli taakseen kotiin päin. Oli lauantai. Maanantaina oli hänen 16. syntymäpäivänsä. This was from a news article written about the victims. So, something really interesting. The victims had actually stopped at the same kiosk where one of the suspects, Valdemar Gullström, worked. And the teens bought like gum, drinks, and ice cream. As you probably remember, Valdemar really didn't like people, especially when they went camping at the Lake Bodom. He didn't really like the teenagers' loud motorcycles and their plans to camp at the lake, so he began threatening them. Valdemar and the teens started to argue and the situation turned pretty heated. Valdemar told the victims that if they were to camp at the lake that night, they would learn to regret it. Hello, I love you. Very interesting point, Betty. Oh, really? I found this and a lot more information from Finnish paranormal investigation team Aavedata's video. This video is on their YouTube channel and it is called Aavedata, Bodomjärven murhat. This video had a lot of information about the murder and the case. If you know or understand any Finnish, go give the video a watch. Unfortunately, they don't have any English subtitles. I have actually interviewed Aavedata on my other channel, Hauntingly Beautiful Adventures. That interview has... The interview has English subtitles, so if you're interested in the paranormal and hearing a little bit more about Aavedata, go give the interview a look, link in description. Also, if you're interested in paranormal... Ow. Oh, Veti. No. Oh. Also, if you're interested... Dude! This is not great. Also, if you're interested in paranormal, go check HelBent's channel or go check my other channel, Hunting Beautiful Adventures. I post a lot of paranormal investigations and I also interview other paranormal investigators and teams. I'm also planning on interviewing people who don't do paranormal investigations, but they have their own experiences. So, if you have any spooky experiences, let me know. And I can interview you with or without camera, whatever you are more comfortable with. I think true crime and paranormal walk hand in hand, and they are both my passion. Let me know what you think about ghosts and the spirit world, and please stay respectful in the comments. I understand everyone has their own opinion on things, so, very civilized conversation, please. So, some of this information I'm about to say about this case comes from HelBent's video. So big shout out to Jupe and Tuuli. Mwah, I love you guys. Link to their video and their channel is also linked in the description box below. So what truly happened that fateful night or early morning? Everything has gone so well the night before. The guys were drinking alcohol. The boys were 18 at the time, which is the legal drinking age in Finland, just to clarify. The teens ate, had good times, swimming and fishing. Nothing pointed to what was going to happen only a few hours later. According to HelBent's video, one of the female victims, Tuulikki, has written on Irmeli's red notebook the following. 5. päivänä retkellä Bodomjärvellä. Seppi ja Nisse olivat kännissä. Ylös yöllä 2 aikaan. Seppi oli metskaamassa, which translates to, on the 5th, on our trip to Lake Bodom, Seppi and Nisse were drunk. Up 2 a.m., Seppi was fishing. Something I found very interesting is that this might have not been the killer's first time. A murders that happened a year prior to Lake Bodom murders had a lot in common with this case. The murders that happened 1 year earlier are known as Tulilahden kaksoismurha, which translates to Tulilahti's double murder, where 2 women were killed inside of their tent. Also, the murder style, weapons used, and even the time matched eerily perfect. These both happened in the early morning hours, and in both cases the murderer stole worthless items, meaning the items weren't worth any money. So interesting information came to light when some eyewitnesses have seen 2 men fishing at the lake that night or early morning. The witnesses were on the other side of the lake, so they didn't have a clear view, and they could only recall movement on the other side. Later, all the fish they had caught was left behind, like they left in a hurry. Why would they leave them behind? Did they see something and they were too afraid to come forward, because they were scared that the murderer might recognize them? These 2 fishers were never found, so police never got an official statement. Another witness was a 14-year-old boy, Olavi Kivilahti, who was also fishing at Lake Bodom that morning. He had seen a man with blondish hair and light-colored shirt. The man was walking away from the area. The boy was about 50 meters away from this man, so he couldn't get a close look. So the question a lot of people have is, why did Gustafsson survive? Nils Gustafsson was biggest from all of the 4. He did boxing, so he was physically very fit and strong. Gustafsson was taller than the average man in that time period. His height was 180 centimeters, and the 1960s average height for a man was 173 centimeters. Could it be someone interrupted in the middle of the murders? So the murderer didn't have time to finish the job, and that's why Gustafsson survived. And how about those fishers who were never found and who left everything behind? Did they see something? What really makes everything even harder is that the victims were ambushed while they were sleeping. And the attack happened from outside of the tent. So even if you saw something, the shock and surprise can cause memory loss. A lot of people still suspect that Gustafsson is the killer, but I'm not so sure about that myself. Yes, a lot of things point that way, but also a lot of things don't. There's no way he caused his own injuries by himself, because in my understanding, his injuries were pretty serious. In some sources, I heard that he had so deep cut on his cheek that you could see his teeth. But the doctor said that his injuries can't explain his memory loss. I mean, are they psychiatrists? Because trauma can cause memory loss. There's a lot of stuff I don't remember from my childhood. Traumatic things. And some people are like, how can't you remember? There's no way to happen if you don't remember. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. So remember that really mean dude, Valdemar Gillström? Valdemar? So the kiosk keeper. So he was the guy who threatened the teens and told them they were going to regret camping there. Valdemar had made supposed confessions, but the police were skeptical because they considered him disturbed. Wouldn't someone disturbed do something like this? Valdemar's wife caught breast cancer and she ended up in the hospital. Valdemar's wife knew that she would never return home from the hospital, and she made a terrifying confession. She told her friends in the hospital that her husband might be the murderer. Police came to interview her, but she decided to stay silent because she wanted to protect her children. In August 2nd, 1969, 9 years after the massacre, Valdemar Gillström. Excuse me! Are you Valdemar Gillström? No? Then go away. In August 2nd, 1969, Valdemar Gillström drowned in the Lake Bodom, most likely by suicide. After Valdemar's death, his wife was finally not afraid to come clean. She said that her husband might have been guilty of the murders. She said that she was so scared for her family's safety that she didn't want to say anything. And she has given her husband a false alibi for the time of the murders. So before his death, Valdemar has confessed to 3 of his friends how he has done it and he is the murderer. Senkin tollo, etkö ymmärrä, että olen Bodomin murhaaja? Mitä minä teen? So on the day of his alleged suicide, after confessing to the murders, Valdemar asked his 3 friends to follow him to Lake Bodom. He said, "Come with me, I'm going to end it all." Valdemar showed his friends the murder spot and demonstrated how he did the murders. So allegedly, Valdemar's last words were, "Nyt saatte nähdä pitkän sukelluksen," which translates to, "Now you're going to see a really long dive." After this, Valdemar went in the water and never came back up again. So after the Lake Bodom murders, someone kept bringing flowers to the crime scene, but no one knew who it was. The flowers stopped appearing after Valdemar's death. I think it could have easily been Valdemar's wife. Maybe she kept bringing the flowers out of guilt. Maybe she knew and that was her way of saying sorry. She died of breast cancer not long after her husband's drowning. When Nils Gustafsson was healed enough to be interviewed, he didn't remember anything of the night of the murders. So police decided to try hypnosis to get some of the memories back. Gustafsson started, actually, to remember some details. So the hypnosis worked. He started to remember some details of the murder and gave a description of the killer to the police. So you remember the 14-year-old boy that was fishing not far from the crime scene and he had witnessed seeing someone leave the crime scene? He also gave a description to the police. What shocked the police was that the description of the killer were identical and they were able to draw a sketch. Do you notice anything familiar? It kinda looks like Hans Osman, one of the suspects I mentioned earlier. The same man that had shown up in the hospital one day after the massacre with bloody and dirty clothes. And he was washing his hands constantly. Again, coincidence? I am seriously so confused. Like, see what I mean? In the beginning when I said that they all did it, they're all guilty. Like, what do you think so far? Who is your main suspect right now? Please tell me in the comments and let's see how many times your opinion keeps changing. Or if you are absolutely sure it was only one person, and only one person, then let me know. In my opinion, Valdemar Gullström and Hans Osman look both really guilty. Some of the things about Gustafsson's story doesn't add up, but honestly, I don't think he did it. Or did he? I mean, he's kind of sus. I don't know, guys. I don't know. So, something very disturbing I found out is that a rolled up towel or cloth, something like was rolled up, was found in a crime scene, and in my understanding, it didn't belong to any of the victims. What makes this discovery even more disturbing? That this towel or cloth had semen on it. What? I was about to wrap this video, but I found so much more information, interviews, interrogations, letters, and other important pieces to this puzzle. There might be another suspect, a man who said he dated one of the victims, Irmeli. As you know, Irmeli was stabbed multiple times and her injuries were a lot more severe than the others. She was also stripped of her clothes waist down. It just looked like she was target of the most hate and anger. The information that I found is absolutely insane, and I can't believe this man wasn't questioned more. Obviously, I can't say he's guilty, but everything I found online is definitely really strange, but it's just my opinion. Don't sue me. But guys, this is enough for today. There will be part 2, and I will get in more detail about this man and everything else I found out. There is so much I want to show you. Oh my god. We will also go through the key evidence, letters, interrogations, and interviews. This is far from over. I am invested. I am obsessed with this case. It's in my dreams. I can't, I was about to just to talk about this case, hey, this thing happened, and I became a crime investigator. I will find the killer. Will you help me? But I tell ya, it gets really weird. There's engagement rings, cheating. The amount of information is just mind-blowing considering how old the case is. So subscribe so you won't miss the part 2. Also, please leave a like if you enjoyed this video and you are excited and can't wait to see part 2. By liking the video, that lets me know that you enjoyed this and you want to know more. I am still very new to this. This is my second channel and this is my second video on this channel. So, yes, Fatty, you wanna come say bye? No? Thank you so much for watching, and I see you on the next one. Bye. Shh. Betty. Shh. Valdemar. Hans Osman was a German-born interview other paranormal investigator. Betty! Shh! Hey! Mene pois. Later, all their fishing... Shh! Didn't they... A rolled up tower... We will also go through the cake... That towel or beef